Okay, I think we're live. I guess if you're there, type something so I can see it. I told someone recently, this is like, it's like flying instruments only in the airplane. And you guys that are there, if you don't, I need you to put something in the chat so that I'll know whether or not I've crashed into the side of the mountain. You're my eyes and ears. So, yay, Jackie! You said the sound is good. Hooray! I'm just muting my phone here and putting that aside. And I also need to know if we've got lag or buffering or anything like that. Anything that's not right, you need to you need to tell me because I don't have any way of knowing it if you don't report back to me. Um, yes, Jackie, I'm flying by the seat of my pants. Um, but anyway, this is gonna be fun. Uh, so um, no buffering, hooray! So far, uh, I'm thinking. Let's see. If you want to tell me uh, what you want to do, let's go ahead and switch this down to my tabletop here so you can see what I've got on offer, so to speak, or planned. I don't really have a big plan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do these trees and I'm going to let you tell me what of it you want to know how to do better, or what, ask questions. What color paint, which brushes, all that kind of stuff. And meanwhile, I'm going to just go ahead and draw a couple of things with the pencil. I guess I'll move my mouse out of the frame. We don't need that. I'm going to draw a couple of things with my pencil. I got started on this little one here, and I'm wondering if I go ahead and zoom in, if this will be helpful. Yeah, I think that will. Oh, and I got a reference photo in there too. Okay, so for drawing trees, it's really a good idea to know the overall shape and to have your plan figured out. I kind of don't like this talking to you when my face is not on there. It feels weird. So when I'm talking, I'll just put that on there so you can at least sort of kind of see that I'm talking to you. Anyway, if you don't have an overall idea of the shape of what you want to do, it's like starting to paint with no plan, or starting to cook dinner with no plan. It's a grab bag. You may get something good and you may not. So I always like to have a plan first. So when I'm doing a tree, let's see, here's my reference picture that was up there on the screen a while ago. I'll just put it right here beside this. And also this one that this is the one that I used for the thumbnail picture for the live stream. This is one that I painted on location. I was doing some plein air stuff with some friends. And I just like trees, so I painted a tree. There's trees everywhere. This one, I don't think I had yeah, I guess maybe I used this reference photo. And this reference photo just comes from, I went walking around my neighborhood and took pictures of trees in neighbors' yards and stuff. No one really cares if you do that. So, or, you could even, I guess, take your chair and your paints and go sit outside and look at trees. I love this one, how it turned out, and that is how I did it. Just sat in a chair outside looking at trees and painting. And you get great results that way. This tree, it's a nice tree, but that background isn't doing anything. So, but it's got the shape of the tree. So anyhow, you can see on this one, and I started doing something here. Let's see, do I have more? Yeah, I'll draw on the back of here. You got to have the idea of this shape of the trunk and all this stuff hanging down and all of these palm fronds coming out here. And I guess this is where I should just go ahead and zoom back in so you can see the close-up. But anyhow, oh, and we don't really need that because we got the reference in the picture. Anyhow, you need to know, okay, the trunk goes up like that way, and then we got all this stuff hanging down here, all this dead fronds that they haven't trimmed off. I mean, this particular tree, I'm not real sure how they have all that on there. That looks really thick, and it looks like what you'd see off of one of those thatch palms, and that's not what this is. So I'm not really sure where all this came from, but there it is, and I know that's there because I was like walking on the sidewalk and stopped to take a picture. So you put that there, and then you've got palm fronds, and they're kind of going off like this, and then you got all these things here like this, and if I draw it this way, you can see the palm fronds individually, you know, the leaves on it like that. That's the same type of stroke, if you will, you're going to do with the paintbrush. So if you've practiced it and kind of figured some things out with your pencil, then you've got a plan, you got a roadmap, and you know where you're going with your tree shape, and you don't have to really think about that so much. You think about your brush strokes and your colors, because there's a whole lot of you got to have a whole lot of fingers in a lot of different pages, say, marking your place, to remember a whole lot of different things. So make it easy on yourself and figure out a plan first for what you want the shape of your tree to be. Then notice the direction of these strokes. Some of these are going to come right off this side, and then we're going to have only little bitty bits of it showing on the other side. So if you know that in advance, you're ready for that, and you do that with your paintbrush, and you got good palm fronds happening. If you want to do let's see, I think I have a different reference photo. We're going to skip that for the moment, though. I'll just use this for a reference. If you want to do this kind of a tree trunk, I'm sure you can tell from this painting what kind of tree trunk that's representing. A little bit later on, I do have a photograph of a tree trunk with that tree with that kind of trunk. I don't think that's not one, and I don't have a printout of it. But what I do to get that is you're going to make some strokes kind of like this. You're just going to use your paintbrush and do this. I'm doing that with my pencil right now, but that's to show you you get the kind of a stroke figured out, and then you do the same thing with your paintbrush, basically. Even to the extent that you can use your paintbrush like this and just draw little strokes like that, or you can put your paintbrush, turn it a different direction, and put strokes more like that, a little bit thicker. You can even really put some, let's get some wide ones going here. Works better from this side. This pencil's, I've used it too much, and it's not making the wide strokes that I had got it making earlier in the day today. But you can get some really nice wide strokes there and make those. There, I'm just going to color it. But you could do that in one stroke with your with your angled paintbrush like this, and then you get those like banana tree leaves with the big wide pieces of it hanging down. So once you got a plan and got something figured out in your head, then you know you have the gist of what you want to do, and you got some direction to head off in, so you're not just taking off down the road without having a clue where you're going. So that is the first step, and let me put that aside here, and I'm gonna, let's see here, let's talk about here. I'm going to use this paper for the first thing. I want to show you a couple of things about how to make your paintbrush do some of this work for you, but also you need to know about getting the water to do the painting for you. So I'm going to go back over here to show you a bigger part of my table so you can see the palette. See what I'm doing there. Let's see, let's have that brush and this one over here. And let's see. Don't forget that I can't really tell what's going on if you don't put stuff in the chat for me. So tell me if this is what you want to know, or if you have questions about something different. Meanwhile, I'm forging ahead and hoping I'm not about to crash into the mountain or, you know, the ocean or whatever. But let's see. To paint a regular tree, I have some things that I found that were like exercises that I did when I first got started painting. I had got a book and it showed me how to paint. It was talking about wet and wet and trees, kind of a combination of things. So I painted a background and then I put a tree on it. What I had wished that I had done before I did this, though, I realized I didn't have the first clue about how to paint the tree. So here's a little bit of a sampler thing that I did. Again, this was from an exercise that I found in a book all those years ago, and I just painted all these different kinds of different trees. It's the same tree, but like fall, summer, spring, winter. So to do this real quick, I would just use, I'm going to take this little round brush and I'm going to turn my paper this way so I've got the room to get all of these in a line here. You can mark a line down there and mark blocks off on your paper if you want to. I'm going to skip that part and just draw. Actually, I'm going to do it a little bit different, and I guess I will. Now that I said I wasn't, I'm going to mark this just real quick to show you. I'm going to actually do something like that and have winter, spring, summer, fall, and I'm going to put it around in a circle because I think that'll be fun. So now we need a good reference for this, and I don't think I put this one. This is the reference picture that I found for this one. And if you want me to put it up on the screen, I have it. It'll take a couple of seconds, but it's not too big a deal if you would like me to put this up on the screen. Otherwise, I'm going to just lay it aside there and you'll see it however you can see it. So let me know in the chat if you have a preference on that. For the moment, though, I'm going to just set it right over here, and I'm going to go ahead to my paint palette and put some transparent red oxide, which I'm using today instead of burnt sienna because I've just about used up all my burnt sienna. So I just put some more red oxide. They're so similar. I use them interchangeably. I do think the transparent red oxide is a cleaner color. There's more granulation and pigment separating in the burnt sienna, and sometimes that's great. That's exactly what I want, but like I said, I'm running out of it, so today I'm just using this other thing. And I'm going to mix some ultramarine blue into that, a pretty good amount in it, and it makes a really, really nice brown color for the tree trunks. And the more blue I put in, the more it can kind of take it toward black. And you see if I spread it out there, it makes a nice gray brown tree trunk color. So that's what I'm using for this tree trunks. Now I'm going to look at this reference photo and make a really strong, straight up the center tree trunk. with some extra dark thrown in there. And this is the winter tree. And then I'm going to just put some branches coming off there like I see in the reference here. They don't have to be exact because trees are not, you know, no two trees, even though they're the same kind of tree, they're not going to be exactly the same. So you don't really have to get all hyper about getting this exactly perfect. There's no point to do that at all. No one is going to take your painting and go find that tree and stand there and compare and say, you got that limb in the wrong place. Nobody's going to do that. So this is just to give you the general idea of where you're going so you can get something that looks realistic. And that's pretty good from there. I've got a nice base going, but this being the winter tree, I can know that there's not going to be a lot of leaves on it, so all this foliage is not going to be there. So we'll be able to see a lot more of these limbs and branches and twigs. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some of those out there like that. And you look at the reference and you can see they go kind of all over the place. And they're not straight lines. And I'm using a round brush for this that has a really nice point on it. And that is pretty good right there. Now what I got to do is, there's a whole bunch of tinier twigs and stuff, and I don't want to paint every single one of those. It won't be as pretty as if I just take my flat brush. I'm going to actually get a little bit smaller one. I'm going to take my flat brush, pull some of that color way out here and add a lot more water to it. And then I'm going to take and just kind of put some of that on there. Can even have more water than that. And I'm just putting that out there in the background. I think I'll put a little bit of more blue in it in some spots to really gray it down even more. And just kind of get that in the overall shape of that tree there. A little more water in a couple of spots. Then I'm going to blot here and there, and part of that is because I want there to be some much lighter spots through there where it looks like, you see in this tree, even without the foliage, you would see this. There are some gaps in it. I had a teacher tell me one time, you got to leave a place for the birds to fly through. So think of it that way, and remember to leave some spots that you don't have leaves or foliage or anything painted in there, so that it can be just your more natural looking and have some gaps in there. Let's see here. I think this would look nice if I painted a little bit of this gray with a little bit more blue down on the bottom here. Let's make it look like maybe there's some snow on the ground here. So that tree is just sitting there with a little tiny bit of a shadow. Because it is winter, there's not going to be a whole lot of shadow there. And put some extra water on the bottom to kind of bleed that tree trunk down into the ground there. Makes it look pretty. And there is a nice winter tree. And let me zoom in so you can see it. And I have to wait for my preview screen to catch up so I can make sure I got it in the frame. But there we go. That's a nice winter tree. It's not a palm, but you wouldn't do palms in winter because they don't, we don't have winter in Florida, but in case you want to paint a tree from back where you came from, or where you live in the summer if you go home when it's too hot here, all that kind of stuff. This is how you paint a winter tree. Now, doing that same tree in spring, you do the same thing over again. You paint that tree trunk on there. It's a straight line going right down there. Then you got these twigs, and you know, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be super cautious to get my trunk looking exactly like I have it on there. Excuse me a second. Oh, I see that my reference picture's in the way. And it's the reference of the palm, so we don't need it. So I'll do that. So hopefully you can see. I need to darken my paint up a little bit. Or just make a bigger puddle so I don't run out so quick. Okay, there we have these limbs coming off this tree here. Gonna make this one a good one for climbing. Or maybe that would be the summer tree. Now, because it's spring, I just remembered I don't need all of these branches in here, because we're going to have some foliage showing. So let me just take some of that right back off there with this wet brush and my paper towel to blot that right out of there. And it's going to work good to do it that way because it leaves a little bit of an imprint, because in the spring the foliage is not as thick or as dark, so you would maybe see through it a little bit there, here and there. So that's how I'm doing that one. And put some really bright yellow on here. Too much. Oops. And I just threw it on my palette where there was already a little tiny bit of green, but all I really did was I'm going to put some yellow on there, and then you can use either some phthalo blue or some ultramarine blue, or really whatever blue to make the green that you like. I try not to use green straight out of the tube because I don't think they look quite as natural and pretty. So I'm going to get a little bit of indigo right here and just put that in there and see what that does. That's kind of darker than I want for a spring tree. So I'm going to rinse that out of my brush, make a different puddle. I'll use that color that I made for my summer tree. I'm going to get a little cobalt and put the cobalt in that yellow and see what that does. Need more yellow because I want a really springy light color. And that is still a summery color. But I'm going to just keep adding more yellow until I get a nice, pretty sap green, bright yellow-green color. Because the spring foliage is new and it's lighter in color. So there we go. I've got it something good going there. And I'm going to just start putting that on here in a few spots. Now, one thing that you could do, you could spray it with your water bottle so that there's some water on there, and then that way when you put the color on here, it starts spreading already. And I think I will also switch to my round brush and just put color right out here, and you see where it hits that water that I put on there, it starts spreading around. And looking at my reference photo here, that can help me decide the shape of the overall thing. So I want to put a little bit more out this way and put some really following those up through there. And I've got a lot going out that way. Now I need to put the top on there. And then once I've got that on there, then I start thinking about where the light would be hitting this thing, because the sunlight is going to hit more on the top of the tree, so the underneath side would be a little bit darker. So I am going to get a little bit, let's just pull a little of this over in here and put a little bit of this darker color in the bottom parts. And I'm just kind of bouncing my brush on there where the paper is kind of wet. And this is doing okay. But if you would use, let's see, I already did it on here. Can you see the difference in those? In what I've got going, aside from the fact that this one's lighter. This one's blobbier. This one is done by taking a round brush. I've got a mop brush here. It's different than this round. It's wet right now. I shouldn't have got it wet. This is a mop brush right here, but this one's too big to do what we're doing. But this is a mop brush. See how when it's dry, it doesn't come to a nice point like this? This is a round that is dry, and this is a mop that is dry. Whereas my round that is wet and my mop that is wet, you can get a point on them. But the mop brush is not made to paint detail like the round one is. The mop brush, you can just make it go all haywire like this, and you can mash it down on your paint palette or on your paper, and it just does this. Let's see if I can zoom in and show you. It just, you know, it spreads all out, and it is kind of a, it looks like a wreck. But it's really good for painting foliage like this. Let me get a different piece of paper right quick. I have another one around here. I was going to paint something else on this, but I'll just use this one for the moment to show you what I'm talking about. I did this backwards. I meant to do that one on the plain paper and then do this right way on there, but whatever. This works. So I'm going to go right back into. We don't have a tree trunk on here. There's a tree trunk. Okay, now I've got some really light colored paint on this mop brush, and I'm going to just mash it out there so that it's kind of going all haywire. And then I'm just going to mash it on. Now, are we in? We're not in the frame. Mash it on the paper. I hate this little tiny bit. I've got like 5 seconds between what my preview screen shows me and what is actually happening. So I have to wait. But anyway, see how I'm mashing this on here, and it just makes really cool pattern of leaves. And then I can get a darker color. One thing I do find in my mop brush, I don't like my mop brush for mixing my colors, but I'm going to just use it right now anyway. So I just added some more pigment into that puddle. So I got a darker green, and while this is still wet, I can go in there and mash into the bottom area here and get some darker color at the bottom for where the shadow would be. But I do find that I need for my taste, I need a little bit more detail in that. in the bottom area there. So I will take my my round brush and go in here and just drop in some dark color where I want the shadows to be, or where I want them to be really strong. And remember to leave some gaps because of, you know, birds gotta fly through there. And you can do a little bit of this dotting color on with your round brush. I just don't find it does as good a job of that as the mop brush does. But there is a nice tree with a pretty cool shape to it using a mop brush to do that. Now, if I will go back to my other paper, and just take this mop brush. It's got a load of water on it, and I'm just gonna use that to just kind of muddle that paint around a little bit, and then maybe put some of my darker color in with that. I don't want to overdo the darker one. On this one it's supposed to be the spring tree, but because that's all wet, it's going to spread all out there and make a nice appearance of a spring tree. And once again, I'm going to put a little bit of a ground for it to be on, and there's some grass sort of growing. And I'll use the round brush and a little bit more brown. Just kind of bring that down into the grass area while it's wet. Not quite dark enough. There. Now, a little yellow on top of it there. For some more grass. And if you paint with the side of your brush, you can get these nice nice kind of dry brushing stroke that makes it look like grass texture. So there's a spring tree, but I think you get the gist of that. Do you want me to do the summer tree and demonstrate with this mop brush one more time, or should I move on to a palm tree now? If anyone has a preference, speak up in the chat. And I'm taking a second to get a drink of water. But that's this kind of tree, and it's I find this easy to do, like this. And you would, once you learn how to do this, you can go and paint. Here's some backgrounds that I was telling you. You can paint a background, and you know, there's nothing fancy there. It's just a wet in wet, messy kind of a background that might have some dappled sunlight or something back there, and you paint one of these trees over top of it like this, and it looks pretty cool, and it's fun and easy. So that is a tree exercise you might want to play with. And keep in mind your overall tree shape. I have a reference here that I got out of a book a lot of years ago, and I can't remember the name of the book, so I'm mad at myself for not writing it down. But it's probably, this piece of paper is probably 30 years old, and I haven't been able to find the book again, but it was all about drawing trees. And this is some different tree silhouettes, but this would help you, having a reference like this helps you have that overall shape that you're going for figured out in your mind ahead of time, so you can get better overall results. Maybe we'll come back to that and do a fir tree, or a tree like this. Is that, yeah. These trees are everywhere down here too, so at least they are in my neighborhood, and they're pretty and they're fun to paint, so we'll do one of those in a minute. But let's move on to get back to doing palm trees. Now that means I gotta move all this stuff out of the way here and find my palm tree paper, which I've already got a piece of paper with blocks marked off. So we're going to do something like this, and that I have several reference pictures ready to do here, and let me switch over to turning them on so you can see. I've got a coconut palm tree, and then that other that's just like a decorative, I don't know what kind of palm this one is, which is kind of similar to the one that's the first one right here, but then the one that's over here up there, that is a coconut palm tree, and they have slightly different overall shape, but you paint them a very similar way. So cleaning up all this extra mop brushes and stuff we don't need, I'm gonna see if I can do this without being hidden behind the reference pictures. Let's first do that coconut palm tree, and so to do that I can turn, is this the right one? Oops, turned off the wrong one. There, that's got the correct one showing. And then what I can do, I think I'll turn my paper this way and do them up and down ways. That gives me more space on my paper to paint the palm. And I'm going to move that right up there so that I think I can be zoomed in right there. And I have to unhide the reference over there, or actually switch it. How did I do that? Oh, I know what I did. Wrong. I don't know what I did here, but I made both reference pictures in here, and I don't have both of them showing, so that's making me confused. A minute, let me turn that one off. There we go, got it. Okay, sorry, but this tech stuff, I don't want to have to learn tech stuff. I want to paint. But anyway, there's the coconut palm, and so what I'm going to do for that, to make a coconut palm tree trunk, I'm going to use my flat angled brush, and I've got one that's maybe only just a little tiny bit wider than the trunk that I want to paint. And I've got a lot more blue in my brown puddle over here. The mix, it's still the mix of the transparent red oxide and ultramarine blue. I just added more blue and a lot more water, and I've got a really light color going on, and I'm going to just put a tree trunk right there, and I turn my brush as I do that stroke down so that it gets wider at the bottom. Then I'm going to put a little bit more brown pigment or the red oxide in there and brown it up a little bit more, and just in this side here drop in some more color. Then maybe I'll drop in a little bit more blue down here at the bottom, and before it has a chance to dry, at the top you want it to be a lot darker, so put in more blue into your brown mix at the top, so it's a lot darker up there. But before that has a chance to dry the whole way, you want to take a scraper. Where is my scraping thing? And you can scrape some lines in it while the paint's still wet, and what will happen there, the paint will run into those that scrape mark that you make. The paint's going to run in there and make that line darker. If you wait till the paint has dried a little bit, then when you scrape the paint away and you make a lighter line. But since I want a darker line, I do it right away there, and this will allow me to get really nice marks on my tree trunk. So there's that, and I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of that color right down here for the shadow at the base of this tree. I think in my reference photo you can see it has a nice big shadow. A lot of it's coming more off this way, so I'm going to just put some, while I have that on my brush, put my shadow over there, and a little bit out like that, and out here and there. That's got that going for me really good, and it blends it right into the bottom of the tree trunk really nicely, so there's not like a big separation there. You don't need to do that if you have a lot of foliage growing up around the base of your tree. Something like this. If you run your tree right into other foliage, obviously you're not going to have that happen. But if you do have it like in my reference photo on the screen, that's the way you would get that to happen. So now, just like we did with the pencil, we start putting these fronds in, the actual palm fronds themselves, and you use the same type of a motion just with your paintbrush instead of with your pencil. And so we need some green color for that. We're also going to, let me see if I can show you, at the top of a palm tree we've got, I'm going to take a minute here and just put in another reference, if I can find it. There it is. Yeah. I put myself a reference photo in here of the close-up of this tree, so you can see how the coconuts are nestled down in there. Now, hopefully I can move that out. Did I do the right thing? Turn it on. There we go. So you can see how those coconuts just nestle right in there at the base of all of those palm fronds. So we're going to paint some palm fronds, and then we're going to go back in and put some coconuts. Let's see, I'll put this over here, and then that way we can see everything and still see what I'm painting. But we're going to put palm fronds in, and I'm going to switch to a larger flat brush now, because I just find it easier to do that with the slightly bigger. You want to try to get yourself accustomed to painting with the largest brush you're comfortable with. That to me makes it easier to get the palm fronds right. So let's see, we've got some yellow here. I got a lot of green in my yellow in my palette because I was sticking that mop brush in there. So let's see if I can dig all that green out and make myself a nice puddle here of the right color. And palm fronds, I like to make the color with either let me switch and show you my paint palette for a minute, because this is going to be kind of important too. I use this Aurelian yellow or a bright lemon yellow, and some people have like a Hansa yellow, depending on what brand you're using. But anything that's a really bright, cool yellow, put a big puddle of that going in your palette there. And I'm just going to show you the difference, where if we used a yellow like quinacridone gold instead, I'll put this over here, or gamboge or some other warm yellow, and I would not use yellow ochre. And I guess while we're while we're experimenting, I'll just make a puddle of that and show you why I don't use yellow ochre. So there is my yellow ochre puddle. Okay, so I got 3 puddles of yellow going here. And I think you can see in the screen, I think the lighting is good enough, you can tell the difference in them. So this is the bright yellow. It has a little bit of green mixed into it already, sorry about that, but this is the bright yellow. It has blue in it. This is the quinacridone gold, and this is the yellow ochre. Now I'm just going to take my indigo, because I really like the greens that I get from indigo. So I'm going to take some indigo paint and just put a little bit of it into that bright yellow. Now you see I didn't put very much, and look how dark it went. But that is a really pretty green. I love that green. To me, it's very natural. It tends a little bit towards an olivey green, but it's just pretty. I like it. And then I can add more blue or more yellow to kind of alter up the color a little bit and get colors that I like. But here's a bit of that. So there's a palm frond in the Aurelian or bright lemon yellow and indigo. Now I'm going to wash that out of my brush and get a little more indigo again and put it in the quinacridone gold, and it makes a kind of a brownish green. It's a very useful green for a lot of things, but it's browner to me until you get it nice and dark. It's just it's not got the bright green of foliage to me. It's a different green, but I'm going to put one on here just so you can see what that looks like. And this is where I was showing you. You can do the individual strokes with the edge of the brush, or you can put your brush flat and get wider strokes and get different styles of palm fronds going there. So now switching, wash that color out, put a little bit of that indigo into this yellow ochre, and that to me is a muddy, ugly color. It's not a pretty green at all. I don't know if there's ever a time I would use that. It's almost like a gray, and so I don't use yellow ochre to mix my greens. I'm not even going to put that on the page. I guess I'll put one in there just so you can see the difference. If you need a really dark gray green, that might be good. But I'm going to paint some other stuff over the top of that because I just don't like that for a natural green in my palm trees. So now switching back over here to this brighter one, I am going to pick up a little more yellow and make an edge of it that is lighter in color. And I'm going to just start looking. Let's see, let's zoom back in at this point because you'll know what colors I'm using because I already showed you that. So switching back over to the close-up, I'm going to put a couple of fronds going straight out to the sides like that, and then you can either make your fronds go up like that, or if you want to have some going down, you can put them hanging down too. And then you would have a little bit on the top. Over here you wouldn't necessarily have them showing on the bottom, but if you do, you could just put a little line like that, and that's a pretty good way to indicate the other side showing there. And then you can just maybe get a little bit more of your blue on your brush and kind of put some. That's really dark, so that's going to have to get some other stuff over top of it. I'm going to keep that right down in the bottom there. And Get some more yellow, and I'm just going to take yellow on my brush straight out of the palette and just kind of put some right on there to make that be the palm frond that I like right there. And let some of the lighter colors show. So you have like a mix of colors going on in this thing, because the sunlight's hitting them all different. So they're not all going to show exactly the same color. And I layer them all over the top of each other because I just like how that looks. And in the top, in the center is going to be your tall, at least for the shape of the coconut palm. It's going to be tall in the center and kind of rounded down and wide here, like a big triangle. So you can just do that with your palm fronds there. And before we get too far along, I've got some purple on my brush, and I'm going to just put a little bit of this purple touched right down in here for the shadows, because it makes really cool shadows going on in there. And also that's the start of our coconuts. So I just put that right down in there. Now I'm going to get that off the brush and put some more palm fronds all over it. And let's see here. Mix up some more bright green. To get where you do these strokes like you like them, you just have to play around with it and practice. But if you try it a few times with your pencil, like I showed you in the beginning, then start doing that with your paintbrush, you see how it's the same stroke, you're just doing it with your paintbrush, and it gets where you can put them in there pretty fast. And I'm starting with the tip of my brush down in that purple and kind of drawing some of that purple out so that it's spread around back in behind there. Now at this point I'm going to just put a little bit of blue straight on there, the ultramarine blue. You could use, if I used a little phthalo blue, that's pretty too. It's a good foil for the purple. The phthalo blue is. They look good together. And that was Pyroline Violet is the purple that I put in there. I'm going to paint a little bit of some of these other strokes to look like shadow on those strokes, just to give it a little bit more depth. So rather than painting a blue palm frond, I'll just put some blue onto some of the palm fronds I already have painted on there. And then this is getting a little muddy right in here, so I'm just going to lift some color off in the same manner that or the same, palm frond kind of a style. And then I'm going to have a palm frond going across there. So I'm going to lift off a little bit right like that. And just move that pigment around that I've already got on the paper. And then I'm going to use the tip of my brush and pull up some little round spots up in there for some coconuts nestled back up in there. Because I used the colors that I used, I'm going to be able to just lift paint and not even have to paint all of these coconuts in here. Some of them are going to just be good like they are. And I'm going to add a little tiny bit of color back into them. And remember, they're going to look like the sunlight is maybe shining off of them. So don't just paint a dark brown blob there. I'm using quinacridone gold and the lemon yellow and just putting little dabs of color on them to give the indication that they're there rather than painting whole big circles. Now I'm also going to take a little bit of the, I think I'll take the phthalo blue and just put a, whoops, that was too thick. Oh well. Put a couple of lines right across through there like that. Mess that one up. So some dark lines in there on top, just kind of going every different direction, helps the look of it. Clean up that one that I messed up. And one thing that I like to do is to make a little bit of a wide spot with the tree trunk color, or a little bit darker version of the tree trunk color. I'm just going to make it a little bit wider right here, where some of the parts of the palms, you know, as they get older, the lower palm fronds kind of turn brown, yellow and brown, and fall off. So I'm going to make it that these bottom ones are showing signs of starting to get to that point, and that wants a little bit of that purple color in it too, just dabbed in there. And there's little tiny pokey things. If you look in the reference photo of the on the left where the coconuts are, it's the close-up on the coconuts, you can see little stringy bits. If you've ever found a big clump of coconuts on the ground after the tree trimmers have come, excuse me, or if you've ever found one of the big pieces that has fallen out of the tree after the coconuts are all down off of it, you know what I'm talking about. That kind of, it almost looks like antlers or something. Excuse me. So you want to put a little tiny bit of that on there, but not too much. Okay, what else does this need? Excuse me. I'm going to just put some green on the ground below it. Excuse me. And there you can see, because we put the shadow on already at the beginning, just rubbing a little green over the top of that, and we've already got the ground fixed, the shadow and the grass and everything. So that is a coconut palm. Excuse me. Now we've been going for about an hour, and I think that really there's no way to cover everything there is about trees and palm trees in one session. It's too much, even if we painted for 4 hours all day, and for after if I tried to paint for 4 hours, I would not be doing anything pretty anymore. After that, I get on overload. So I think unless anyone has any questions and really wants to stay a little bit longer and have me cover something specific, we can stop right here for today. And this will get uploaded to my channel. You can go back and watch it again anytime you want to. But also we can do a continuation, part 2 or part 3 or whatever we're on. We can continue working on trees if there's interest in that. And I am going to be doing this live stream every other Friday throughout the summer. If that schedule gets changed up, like for holiday weekend or something like that, I will post that information somewhere where you can find it on my Facebook page or my website or something like that. Plus, if you just go to my homepage on YouTube, you can see in the upcoming live streams section right at the top. You'll see where it'll show you what the next date and time is, but it'll always be on a Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. So I'm thinking we should be done now. I didn't see anything come through on the chat from anyone saying they have any more questions and want to stay. So we're going to bug out now. Hope you had fun, and feel free to email me at any time, or even put in the comments below on the recorded videos if you have a specific thing you want me to cover. So thanks for being here. Thank you, Jackie. And I guess we'll see you next time.